You can see now that I've started to hollow the ball. You're going to be very careful when you're turning out here, because you're quite a long way from the chucking point, and so there's a lot of vibration, so you've got to go really slowly. The lathe is set on quite a low speed, and when I go in here I go in very gently indeed. So here's the hole that I'm working through. It will probably get bigger as I move on, because it'll vibrate and I'll catch the edge. So I'll just give you an example of what I'm doing here. I'm drilling in with this gouge, and this is quite hard wood really for doing this. If you want to try this yourself, I'd suggest starting with some soft like pine or some kind of spruce. And you can see I'm just drilling and gradually working my way down. Got a lot of patience for this, and you can see it vibrates. Just keep pulling wood out of the middle there. It'll take a while, and so I'll get back to you when I've got a bit further on. You can see that I've wet this a little bit because I've put some super glue on the ends of the cracks to try and stop them propagating too far. I don't want them to propagate out around the end here. And so what I need to do now is to hollow out at an angle. So let's just do a little bit of that. You can see that the flute of the gouge does remove quite a lot of the material from the inside of the sphere. However, it won't get rid of all of it. So one of the tricks is to get a slightly bigger gouge, and I've been using this to hollow out as well. I just use it to shovel out the debris. It just stops it getting too full and stops it from clogging up. Welcome back to the shed. It's been a week. I only do this stuff at weekends. So today I'm going to continue to show you how to hollow out the ball, and we'll have a look at how we can do some more work on the pedestal as well once that hollowing out is finished. So here we can see the Pomander on the lathe still, and you can see I've had a bit of a vacuum up just to get rid of some of the sawdust. So I'm just going to continue to hollow this out. These cracks haven't actually propagated anymore, which is a good sign. So this will become part of the feature of the ball, as will this hole here and these cracks. But again, the staining is going to look quite nice. So again, we'll just get on with it, and I'll come back to you once we've got a little bit more work done on it. So now I've been hollowing out a little bit more, and I've started to get to the point now where I'm starting to break through into this hollow here. And what happens now is that as I remove material from the inside, it escapes through here, so it makes removing material much easier. I've got to be careful now, because I don't want to weaken it beyond the point that it can hold itself together. So I'm going to reduce the speed, and I'm going to make finer cuts now as I start to get closer and closer to this edge. Again, I might put a little bit more super glue just to stabilise some of these cracks. Okay, so it's getting a bit thinner now. I can see into these cracks as well as through this hole. Since this thing is going to have a lot of decorative piercings in it, a lot of decorative holes in it, I'm going to drill some of those holes now, and that will allow some of the waste to escape, but it will also, since I'm going to be putting holes in it anyway, allow me to see how thick the wall is at various parts around the sphere. So I'll get on and drill some holes, and I'll come back to you when I've done it. You can see I've drilled quite a lot of holes now. There will be a lot more before I've finished. Trying to make it as random as possible, but with a little bit of method in it. So for instance, a couple together there, put a small one next to it. You get a big one, you put a small one next to it. Little groups of small ones. But again, when you do a grouping, try not to make it symmetrical. Try not to make anything too linear. That's a little bit too linear for me. So I'll be putting some smaller ones around that to break that up, and so on. So basically, all I'm doing here is I'm just taking in this case, a 5mm drill, and I'm just drilling holes as perpendicular to the surface as I can. Do like that. And I'm not really worried about marking the outside edge there. You can see I've made a little ring because this is all going to get sanded yet. And so what I'm trying to do here now is a couple of different things. One, to get myself a nice pattern in there, but it's a bit random at the moment. 2, where I've got cracks that I think will propagate, I can drill the end of them and that will actually stop that crack propagating. So I've changed my lighting now. It's a little bit more difficult to see on camera, but I have a light down the bottom here which is shining through those holes I've just created. And now I'm going to introduce a tool inside here. Again, difficult to see on the camera, but I can actually see that tool inside the sphere now, and I can cut the inside face of this and actually be able to see what I'm doing inside the sphere. Okay, so here again I've changed the lighting a little bit for the camera so that you can hopefully see it a little bit better. So I'm going to introduce a tool now at the same time, and to give you the same impression that I can see, and hopefully you can see the tool inside there. You can see I can hollow out the inside of this sphere now. Just take my time, and I can see the wall thickness as it rotates. So here you can see the ball. It's turned as thin as I want to turn it. You always try and push your luck with these things. And you can see that the cracks are in here, and I've had to super glue them a little bit more to support them. But it's pretty much hollowed out now. I've got to do some more work to use these cracks and make them part of the features of the ball, and then we can move on to the pedestal. Okay, so let's talk design. When it comes to the holes in this, I'm going to go through another 3 stages of getting gradually smaller and smaller until I'm right down to a 1mm hole. And when I'm designing this, I try not to actually design it. I try to make it so that it's as random as possible, but in clusters, so that larger holes go to smaller ones that go to smaller ones, but not in any straight lines. I don't want any linear features on here, so that it looks almost like bubbles rising through water. Okay, now so I've set up my high-speed grinding tool, and you can see here that I've got a grinding tip in here. It's one of these diamond coated grinding tools, and I'm going to use this within the cracks to clean them up and take all the burrs away as well through some of the holes, and also to try and put some shape into these cracks that kind of makes them a little bit more interesting. So if you don't like the dentist, turn away now. Got the tool set on its lowest speed. I don't want to burn the wood, I just want to grind it away gently. And you can see here that I've done some little bit of drawing on it here, just as a guide. I might not stick with that, depends on how the cut's going. As you can see then, I was cutting at an angle this way and then at an angle this way. What this does is it stops small depressions forming in the cut. Because this is such a small diameter tool, it will want to make little depressions as it goes along. It's very difficult to get a smooth cut. However, if you then go across that at an angle and then across that at an angle, it smooths out quite well. As you can see, I've now progressed quite well. I just need to clean up some of these holes, and also some of these features that I've used to hide some of the cracks. I need to make the ends of them a little bit sharper to define them. So what I've got here is a junior hacksaw blade, and I've ground a thinner stretch on one end, and the teeth point backwards on this, so I cut as I pull out rather than as I push in. And with this I can sharpen up the end of these figures just to give them a little bit of definition, just to make them look a bit nicer. And you can see there I've got quite a sharp point on that. Obviously I'll clean it up, make it a little bit nicer as we go on. But you can see here I'm just cutting points into these figures like so. Now we've managed to drill lots of these small holes in here and do some final cleanup around the areas that used to be the cracks. You can see there's a bit of work going on there. There's a little bit more sanding to do here, which I want to do to get some of these marks out before I carry on. This whole thing's going to be waxed, so these slightly discoloured areas from the super glue will disappear completely when the wax gets on here. So now this is sanded up to 600 grit. You can see it's starting to get quite a nice finish. Again, one of the advantages of hardwood is that when you do go to the higher grits, it does start to get a shine on it all by itself. There's no finish on this, there's no polish on this yet. This is just the raw wood. Just going to do some 1mm holes now. Just doing these 1mm holes, in effect these become the fizz in the bubbles, and it also makes it connected and gives you that better look to it. So I've got a couple more 100 of those to do, and I'll get back to you when I've finished. So now we're going to leave this and move on to the pedestal. We need to get this fairly well finished off, because once we start working here, this can become slightly eccentric again. You can see it's quite soft here, so once that goes out of balance, goes out of true, it becomes very difficult to sand. So here we can see the pedestal part of the piece. And I need to do a little bit of planning now about where the skirts are going to be and some of the frills. So I'm just going to mark that up. So I'm going to bring my first skirt, if we'll call it that, first frill out to about here. The second one that's going to be inside that's going to be about here. Then there's going to be a bead down to here with another skirt here, and then it's going to flare out. So that's kind of the layout I'm aiming at. And these lines will be completely turned away by the time I'm finished. They're just there to give me a little bit of guidance. You can see here that I'm set up now with my short rest. Don't need the long one on here. So just a short rest, so I can start cutting into these marks that I've just made. So quite high speed now, give me a clean cut, and I'm just going to go in with a bowl gouge.